My name is Ava Reynolds, and the day my billionaire grandmother's estate hearing began was the day my entire family tried to destroy me in front of everyone who mattered, because the moment the attorney finished listing the assets, my mother stood up with tears already in her eyes and said loudly, "Before anything is finalized, we need to address the fact that Ava has been stealing from Grandma for months." And suddenly, every head in the courtroom-style office turned toward me, as my father added in a calm voice meant to sound reasonable, she was the only one with access to the private rooms and financial documents, and valuables started disappearing right after she began visiting every weekend, while my cousin laughed softly and said, "We all knew she was pretending to be the caring granddaughter just to get close to the money." And whispers exploded around the room as people nodded like my guilt was obvious, but I stayed silent because months earlier my grandmother had squeezed my hand in the hospital and whispered, "When they come for you, don't fight them. I've already prepared the truth." And before I continue, tell me where you're watching from right now and hit like if you believe family betrayal hurts the worst, because what happened next changed everything, as the attorney calmly closed his folder and said, "Mrs. Reynolds anticipated these accusations," before turning on a large screen where hidden security footage began to play. But before that moment, my mind rushed back to how things really started, when Grandma Eleanor first realized forged signatures had appeared on property transfers she never approved, and quietly installed cameras around the mansion without telling anyone, especially after noticing my mother suddenly showing up late at night claiming she needed documents. And during those last months, while everyone else was busy discussing inheritance numbers, I was the one bringing her meals, sitting beside her bed, listening to stories about how she built her real estate empire from nothing after my grandfather died, and how money had slowly changed the people she loved. And she warned me that greed makes people dangerous, which was why she asked me to promise I'd trust her plan no matter how bad things looked. And now, back in that hearing room as the video played. The first clip showed my mother slipping into Grandma's locked study after midnight, removing jewelry boxes and small safes, followed by another clip days later where she returned again, filling a designer bag with documents and antiques. And gasps filled the room while my father jumped up shouting that it was out of context, until the attorney calmly played an audio recording of my parents whispering in the hallway about how blaming me would make it easier to contest the will and take full control of the estate. My mother's voice clear, saying, "Ava's too quiet, no one will question it," and my father replying, "Once she looks guilty, the assets come back to us." And at that moment, my cousin's face drained of color, as everyone realized the setup had been planned for months. And just when silence settled like a bomb, the attorney played my grandmother's final video, where she appeared weak but fierce, saying, "If you're watching this, it means my family tried to destroy the only person who loved me without expecting anything in return." And then she looked straight into the camera and announced that every mansion, investment, and company would go solely to me, while creating a massive charity fund for underprivileged kids, adding that any attempt to challenge the will would automatically trigger criminal investigations for theft and fraud. And suddenly, the same people who called me a thief were frozen in fear, realizing their own crimes were now exposed. And over the next months, legal charges followed, as stolen assets were recovered, reputations collapsed, and the people who once ruled social circles disappeared from them entirely, while I transformed the estate into scholarship programs and community centers, just like Grandma dreamed, finally understanding that family isn't blood, but loyalty, and that sometimes the truth doesn't need shouting, because when it finally speaks, it destroys every lie standing in its way.